Okay, well, I think we're all here and ready to go. So let's go ahead and get started. The time is 6:07 p.m. on June 18th, 2020, and I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Let's start with our roll call. Chantel Bingham.
Sue Lewis.
Olivia Gabay.
Ann Smith.
Lindell Von Schill.
Robert Woodside.
Andy Orban.
Ernest Chambers.
Catherine Lawn.
Jeanette Abbey Nader.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move to our mission. And if folks don't mind, I think I'm just going to recite it for us instead of us doing a weird hodgepodge delay. So our mission act as a strong advocate to justice and equal opportunity by providing citywide leadership and guidance in the area of civil rights. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to matters by the public. Are there any public comments?
No one has their hand raised at this point, Jeanette. Oh, I'm sorry, Chantel.
Lindell, do you see any folks on the Facebook?
Chantel, Brandon Collins just joined us as an attendee. I don't know if you heard your call for public comment.
Oh, okay. Hi, Brandon. We're in public comment right now. If you would like to talk, please raise your hand. And if folks are attending, Todd, do you want to give folks instructions on how they would raise their hand if they don't know?
Sure. So if you're an attendee by computer through Zoom, there should be a small icon in the center at the bottom of your screen that looks like a little hand. You just click on that, and then that'll appear on the list of attendees that I can see. I will keep track of what order hands are raised, and we'll go, if we do public comment, we'll go in order as the hands are raised. If you're joining by phone, I don't think anybody is on here, but I'm not sure if I can see the difference, but if you're joined by phone, you hit *9 to raise your hand, and I'll see that icon on the screen.
Thank you, Todd. And Brandon has said in the Q&A that he is not commenting at this second. So I think we can, I'm seeing Walt Heineke has just joined as well. Walt, we have just entered the public comment of the of our session. If you have, okay, there's a hand by Walt.
I just give Walt the option to speak. I don't know if it's working or not. Go ahead and speak, Walt, and make sure it works for you.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. I appreciate you meeting all again after the COVID disaster, holiday, whatever it was. And I'm glad you're back on the job looking at future directions of the Human Rights Commission. I think, the context has changed and your jobs are getting more and more important and extremely relevant right now. And I really do, and I've said this before, and I think you all know of it. Some of you are tired of hearing me say it, but I really have high expectations for the Human Rights Commission moving back toward its original intentions to specifically help people in Charlottesville who are suffering from employment discrimination and housing discrimination, because that was the original idea, that the germination for the entire Human Rights Commission. So I think that means that you need to go a little harder on getting a FEPA agreement in place and a FHAP agreement in place, and start serving folks in businesses larger than 15 who are suffering from discrimination. I think after this massive COVID impact on employment in Charlottesville, we're going to have a huge agenda ahead of us in terms of trying to figure out what unemployment, especially by race, looks like in Charlottesville. I think it's always been horrible. And I hope that you take time out to do a year-long study, focused study on employment and race in Charlottesville so that we can work out some of these problems in a proactive way while you're actually getting the office back into gear with a FEPA and an FHAP agreement as well. Secondly, with COVID, we know that there's significant problems with housing, and especially rental housing and discrimination in rental housing going on right now, and it's only likely to get worse. So the extent to which you can help people who have complaints about discrimination in housing would be a great service to our community. I think there's some internal things that you should probably be looking at in terms of change. I think the city council has received a letter from major social justice organizations in town, which kind of lay out some of the ideas that you might think about for making some changes inside the Human Rights Commission itself and with the office. I think you've also received some input on expectations for the type of hire that we may need for the new director or manager of the office. And I'm hoping it's somebody that specifically has experience with FHAP and FEPA type investigations and resolutions, because we really need somebody that if we're going to go to looking at businesses that are larger than 15, we're going to have our work cut out for us. So I hope you'll consider those things as you move forward. I think this is an incredibly important time for the human rights to get ramped up and working on some of the equity and anti-racist policies that we need to be looking at in town. Thanks for that opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Walt Heineke, and also thank you for keeping it under 3 minutes. I did not voice that before, but we are trying to keep public comment around 3 minutes. Obviously, if folks go over, we're not gonna stop you, especially if you have things to say, especially in this time. There's a lot that's going on. But Walt, thank you for sharing. Are there any others who would like to speak during public comment? I see that James Watson has joined. James, we're at the public comment section of our agenda, and if you have anything that you would like to share, please raise your hand. I believe there's an icon that you click for that. And Lindell, if you can let us know if folks have put on any comments on Facebook, that would be great. We're not monitoring Twitter.
Chantel, I hate to disturb you, but for some reason I cannot find the hands up. I had it in one meeting once before, but I don't have it available for me with this meeting.
So I believe that's because you're a panelist, right, Todd?
Okay.
So we can't put our hands up. You can freely speak whenever you need to as a panelist.
Oh, okay. So if there's, when will we get to comment on the
response
by the public?
Yeah, we are going to move there, I think, now, if there are no more public comments that Lindell has seen on Facebook or folks with their hands up. So nothing. All right, so we can go ahead and move on to our commission response to matters by the public. And Anne, it seems like you would like to say something.
Yes, I would. I reviewed the information that Mr. Heineke sent to the City Council, and there are a lot of things that I disagree with him about, and that can be for another time that we could possibly have a discussion. But when the signatures, when you signed it by organization names, that doesn't give me any idea who in that organization supported this. Is it the entire organization? Is it one person in the organization? And, you know, I don't quite understand this. It's like generic people, generic organizations, but no one associated with them. So I want to know, is there anyone associated with these signatures on this letter?
Thank you, Anne. Wall, you still have permission to speak if you would like to respond to Anne.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, those organizations, I consulted with the directors of all those organizations. And so you can assume that the directors of those organizations signed on.
Okay. Would it be, this is Ann again, would it be possible for you to at some point in time email us the people who you contacted instead of us having to look up everybody?
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Walt, for working with us. Are there any other comments that would like to be shared by commissioners? We do have it on our agenda item to go over some of the things that Walt has mentioned and raised and share with us. There's a letter, as Ann Smith has talked about, that's in our agenda packet, as well as some recommendations that were included there. And that's in section, we'll get to that in-depth discussion on it in section 5 of our working agenda. So there is time to speak on that, Ann, a little bit later.
Okay, thank you.
All right, would any other commissioners like to respond to Walt's comments? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and then close out this part of our the matters by the public and move us on to the minutes. So we have a lot of outstanding minutes ever since February, since COVID, we weren't able to meet in March. And so there's a lot of minutes that need to get approved so they can be put on the website for the public to see. I'm sure they're already available, but we need to officially approve the document. So if at this time, if there are any comments on that, if someone could put forth a motion, that would be amazing to approve the minutes since February up until our most recent ad hoc meeting this June, this past Thursday.
I make a motion to approve all minutes, all the retreat meeting minutes on the 1st of February 2020, work session meeting minutes on the 5th of February 2020, regular meeting minutes on February 20th, 2020, and the ad hoc committee meeting on June 11th, 2020.
A second.
Sorry, was it Jeanette that had the second, or
And
was
either of us.
Fine, either one.
I heard Jeanette.
I heard Jeanette first as well? I don't, it could be the lag or the Wi-Fi, but I heard Jeanette down as seconding. So all those in favor of passing the minutes from February 1st, 2020, from our retreat, our work session minutes from February 5th, 2020, our regular meeting minutes from February 20th, 2020, and then our ad hoc committee minutes from June 11, 2020. Could you, I guess we say aye or raise our hands?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay. Just a quick suggestion so we can keep track of who said, because it's kind of hard to hear. You might want to just go by window, and then we can track that way, if that's okay.
That sounds great. So I have Ann Smith first. Ann, do you want to give us your vote for?
Oh, I'm sorry. Aye.
Lindell,
Aye.
Robert Woodside,
Aye, and also real quick, we actually can raise our hands.
Yeah.
If we all wanted to just vote like that, FYI, we could do that.
Right.
But
All you
aye.
do is go to the participant list, and at the bottom of the participant list, there's invite, mute me, or raise hand.
Does everybody see that? Awesome. People are raising their hands. So we are going to do that. I'm sorry, Todd. Do you see it now? And do you see how to raise your hand?
Yeah, I see it now. Thank you.
Awesome.
Chantel, it's Brian Wheeler. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Brian.
Hey, I'm so sorry to interrupt you when you're in the middle of a vote like that. Excuse me.
We can't switch over with how to do it.
One, excuse me.
Brian?
I'm okay. What I want to say is it's hard for the public to see who's voting with hand raising. And you want to have the audio and video if possible to capture the votes.
I understand. Thank you.
I'll tune back out. Thanks.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Brian, anybody who signs on, do they not have access to the panelist list?
The panelists have access, the attendees do not.
Okay, okay, thank you.
All right, so we are gonna, I am so sorry. We are gonna do this one more time and pick up where we left off so it can all be recorded correctly. Again, I apologize for that. I think technology, I got excited about raising our hands instead, which sounded like a great idea. But the public can't hear us. So I'm gonna restate the motion that Rob has raised and Jeanette has seconded for passing our minutes. So all those in favor of passing the minutes from our retreat meeting on February 1st, 2020, our work session meeting minutes on February 5th, 2020, our regular meeting minutes from February 20th, 2020, and our ad hoc committee meeting minutes from June 11th, 2020. Please say aye when I call your name. And we're going to start this time with Catherine Lawn.
Aye.
Jeanette Abbey Nader.
Aye.
Lindell.
Aye.
Ernest Chambers.
Aye.
Ann Smith.
Aye.
Robert Woodside.
Aye.
Sue Lewis.
Aye.
Andy Orban.
Aye.
Olivia Gabby.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't there for all of those meetings.
Sounds good. Todd, could you just give us a quick vote really quickly? I think it does polled.
It's 8 in favor and 1 abstain. Does that sound right to everyone?
Hold on, let me get the nays. And I mean, no one, if anybody votes for no.
Didn't get voted.
Huh?
I don't think Catherine got called because she's called in and she's not on video.
Catherine Spear?
Alon.
Catherine Lawn was the first.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
All right. And so we have 8 for yes, 0 for no, and 1 abstention. And it holds. Thank you. Thank you for bearing with us for that. All right. We'll move on to business matters. Todd, do you have a staff report for us?
So go into detail on the staff report. You guys, it's attached to the minute packet for those of the public who would like to see it. It's available on the city's website if you go to the city calendar and click on the event. It's all there for you to see. I will just note that I've entered data for the month of February. It took several days just to do that. Entering data for a month of services usually takes about 3 full working days to get through a month's worth of data. So it's a slow process in the midst of doing other things. And so we had an average of 10 external or incoming contacts per day in February. So as you can see, people are still contacting us for various things. And so you can look at the details. If you have any questions about the numbers, feel free to ask during the meeting or anytime outside of meeting, that was fine as well. Or if you have any other questions about the other updates that are on those minutes or on that report, please let me know. I don't want to take up a lot of your time going over the stuff that's already available for you to read. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Todd. Do you have any updates on the one case that we had that was open for investigation?
Sure. So that there's a note on the report about that. So that investigation is complete. I turned that into the city manager, or I'm sorry, the city attorney's office. The challenge, I think we had discussed this in a previous commission meeting, is that there is no administrative judge to issue a final determination of whether or not discrimination occurred. In reviewing that with city attorney, I know we had talked about Chantel and Sue potentially serving as the decision-making body and then abstaining if there was an appeal. City attorney felt that this Human Rights Commission as a whole, including all members, is exclusively an appellate body and therefore not able to make the determination, and that a city staff person would be that person to do so. And in this case, in the absence of a person in Charlene's position, that would fall in the city manager's office. And so she is taking that to the city manager's office for either Dr. Richardson or one of his designees to be the deciding person on that. So there it sits, which is a little, it's hard because we want to be able to respond to the complainant, but we just have to work within what the ordinance allows us to do.
And I'm sorry, Todd, I just had another follow-up question about that. How long has the, is there a timeline on it? So for the moment you guys have sent it to the city manager's office for, a decision to be made, what was the date of that? And how do we just make sure that a decision is made in a timely manner and things aren't just waiting?
Sure, I'll certainly follow up with it on a weekly basis just to get an update from Allison Davies, who's our contact person in city manager's office. I'd have to look back at my own report, and I've got all these other screens open at the moment to tell you the exact date. But yeah, it's been a few weeks now, and so I've been following up with her. There is, there's a lot going on right now, and I think they're just, I can't push it any faster, but I will continue to follow up. If you, the commission can always inquire as well if you have questions.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from commissioners on Todd's report? It's in the packet for you all to see. He did a great job of summarizing a lot of the activities that he's been up to as well during this time. So thank you so much, Todd, for doing more than your, serving us more than just your capacity as at the Office of Human Rights. You've been doing a lot of outreach calls and things like that for the Charlottesville resource hotline for COVID. And I think that's phenomenal. So thanks for being there. Are there any more questions? All right. We'll go ahead and move on to the chair update. And I've already shared this with you all, but we did get confirmation from Kina Thomas that the meeting for the joint session with City Council is scheduled for July 28th. I forwarded that email on, and we'll make sure to double back and just check in about that joint work session, but it has been on the calendar for a while now. Kina did share some advice about how to run an effective joint meeting with City Council via email with me, which I really appreciate. A lot of what we think should be in a meeting. So coming with an agenda, being able to share it before time with ample time to review and go back and forth. Before COVID, we did have the intention to be working with council through this entire time. Obviously that didn't happen. Commission, we couldn't meet. So things are a little bit, I think, behind, but I feel like we're rapidly catching up. As we can see with our work session and the work, the ad hoc committee that Jeanette held last Thursday. So I'm really excited about that. And then in terms of the COVID response by city, this was an outstanding agenda item from the March meeting that's no longer even relevant. It was just a moment for me to check in with them about the board and commissions and if they were going to continue. In that case, they had gotten canceled. So there's not much to really update about that besides we took a break for COVID and now we're back. So that's all I have for my update. Are there any questions there about our joint work session with City Council, the date? I think I recall one commissioner said that they could not do July 28th at some point.
That was me, and it's more of a probable because my son is set to be born on July 26th. So whether he's late or early will depend. Hopefully he's right on time like his sister.
Congratulations, Robert. This is Jeanette. I don't know, has a time been set for that yet?
Time has been set, Jeanette, and I think it's 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. if I remember correctly. We can pull that up really quickly, but I'm pretty sure it's 3 p.m. to 6 p.m.
And is that going to be a virtual meeting?
That's another great question. I would assume, I'm going to assume probably. But I guess
it will be important because I may not be able to go if it is not virtual. There's some quarantine issues.
All right, so I will make a note to check in with Kaina about that and any of the joint sessions. So far, all of the sessions with City Council have continued to be virtual. And so I do feel like it will continue to be that, but it's good to check in. Todd, you're not going to see this email that I'm talking about. I know that I forwarded it on to everyone, but
3 p.m. to 6 p.m. is correct.
Sorry, what? Okay. Well, we're just going to rely on my memory. As of right now, I'm not going to waste our time. Actually, there it is. Yep, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Found it. For July 28th. So there it is. We're going to move on. If there are no more questions, I'll keep us moving to the work session. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to our work session. Jeanette, do you have an update for us on the OHR, HRC structure recommendations and just the documents that you all had prepared there? And then underneath that, there's also the recommendations and letter sent by Walt Heineke on behalf of other social justice organizations.
So the documents are in the Google Drive for people to make comments. I don't believe there have been any comments yet that I've noted. So no additional comments at this time. We did not have the comments from Walt's letter was not integrated into our meeting. I hadn't seen it before then. So that is yet to be done.
Okay. And they're included, all of those are included in the packet.
Yeah, I see that now.
Yeah. All right. So let's just get into the meat of it then. The recommendations in the letter sent by the social justice organizations, have everyone, I'm hoping that everyone had the time to review and really look over it. I certainly have. I think that there's a lot of really great recommendations in this letter. I do understand the history of some things that have happened, but I do urge us to look at the recommendations as much as we can for what they are and the true intentions behind them if we can. With that being said, I also do want to hear and understand any thoughts in that folks have on the recommendations that were presented in this letter, and maybe any barriers to implement them and what's actually feasible in this moment in time. And if it's not feasible, how can we work to make certain things feasible? I think is a good goal to have.
I just wanted to say about the organizations who signed it. These are some of the organizations who are doing some of the most work for our most vulnerable community members, who I would hope that the HRC is committed to, and it's their full-time job, which is none of ours, to do the specific work that they are doing. And I thought that this letter was really important, and there are some questions I certainly have about the practicality of some items, but I think generally I support the like many asks of the letter, and especially the requested abilities of the potential new director. I would like us to have more teeth as an organization. I would like us to be the governmental arm that can help these organizations who did sign this, who have some sort of authority in this. It's been something we've been speaking about for a long time, and there's obviously layers and layers of complication involving in them, but I would like to pursue these, and having a director with that experience is, would be invaluable.
And Anne has her hand raised.
Sorry, I'm so sorry, guys. I am taking notes at the same time. Thank you, Todd. Go ahead, Anne.
Okay, as I was reviewing this letter, I have a lot of highlighted portions of the letter, and I won't read everything that I've highlighted, but I understand where the human rights did come out of the dialogue on race, but the weakened version came from City Council at that time. So unless it's going to be presented to City Council that we change some of the tone of the ordinance, then I'm not seeing how it's going to work. One thing that I did have a question about is it was 1, 2, 3, the 5th paragraph, 1st page. And it says, on a matter of the HRC conducting significant studies of systematic discrimination with policy recommendations, this function has not been adequately fulfilled. And I would beg to differ, because we have had groups, either ad hoc or whatever, that we address the seriousness of the foster care, and some people came into the group thinking that it was significantly geared towards African-American children, and we later find out that the city of Charlottesville has no control on the rules that mandate this. They have to go by the state rules. And that was at that time that we did this. I think we have been working on the police policy and procedures, but we just haven't submitted it. And I guess with everything that has come up, that's one of the reasons why we have not. So I sort of kind of take offense to this paragraph of saying that we haven't been doing anything. Another thing, it's said that it's still in part of that paragraph near the end. It says, this has hindered HRC from effective processes. As a result, the HRC and OHR have been ineffective and is not producing its intended impact on community equity. All right, I see that as being a misstatement, because I know what our office has done. I have been here since 2013. So unless people start talking to people who have experienced this, then making statements like this, they need to get their information strength together. And the number, what they're talking about, how we hired an OHR director, we discussed that the other day. But I am concerned about reduce the HRC membership back to 7 or 9 by using the first in, first out format for reducing its size for effective deliberation and action. I would disagree with that, because if a person has been on the commission probably as long as I have background knowledge, I know what's going on, and I don't like the way that that would be determined, because you have people that come in and the next thing you know, they're gone. So there's not consistency, and I'm not really sure if that part would hold true for consistency. I agree that we should have a designated council liaison. Most of the commissions in the city do have that. And if, I guess the question I have is, if all of these social justice organizations are so concerned about what we're doing, then why haven't they come to our meetings? Or why hasn't a representative come to our meetings so they could express what their concerns are? But to put it in this letter, that's not telling me anything. They need to show up. And I know many of you have Twitter accounts, Facebook accounts that you use on a regular basis. So I don't see why you could not notify your friends in those arenas that we're having a meeting and things like that, so the public can come. Because I figure you can gripe about everything, but unless you show up and make your call and share your cause and your rationale for saying something, then it really isn't feasible. It's really not fair to the Human Rights Commission. So that's how I feel about that letter, minus some of the other things I would have said.
And so I just want to quickly raise that Jeanette has lost the connection. I think she's trying to reconnect, but she's currently not with the group.
Okay, thank you, Todd. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. I do respect you. You have, been on a commission for a while now, and I do think there's something that we can say about institutional knowledge and the strength and power of that wisdom, because I am learning from you every day, as well as other elders on our board that have been here for a while. I respectfully do have to disagree with some of the things that you've raised. I do think our commission is watered down, and you've even said it too, because of the version that City Council ended up passing. And because of that watered down version of our infrastructure, we are unable to do a lot that we could be able to do.
Right.
And I do think that now more than ever, every single body that we have that is committed to justice or equity within our city needs to be as strong as it can be, period. And we do need to work to strengthen that. I don't have all the answers for how that can be done. I do know that there's a lot of wealth in our community to figure it out. And so if we do as a commission commit to that, I do have faith that we can strengthen the Office of Human Rights. I do have faith we can get it more money to be able to do what it needs to do. But if we can't agree on that here, that we do need to strengthen our own infrastructure, then it's going to be hard for us to make those changes. So I do definitely agree with your sentiments. I personally, we do have a large Human Rights Commission. As long as people are here to do the work and are ready to work, I'm not necessarily for smaller numbers. I think we need a lot of good hands ready to do this work. And so that could, is here or there with how well we're able to effectively move. But I do think from time to time, if you're on the outside looking in, you may see a lot of bodies and a lot of people and not enough work happening. And for me, I'm like, 1 + 1 = 2, like we should be doing a little bit more. So if folks are in agreement with, some of the things that were said, at least the sentiment of the letter, that we haven't done enough because of our infrastructure. I think that's pretty valid. I would love to work towards that as a commission. And I do also, to Olivia's point about the social justice organizations that were represented, they are all very strong, powerful organizations. And if the ED signed on, that means a lot. And I do think that I don't care whose individual name is a part of that. I think that ED's leadership is enough, and we should step up to the plate and try to do what we can. But thank you for sharing, Anne. I do hear you, and I don't mean any disrespect.
Oh, I just want to clarify something, Chantel. I did not say that we don't need to be stronger. I am saying that we have done some things that the public is not aware of. I agree that there are more things that could be done, but a lot of the things that we want done are bogged down by city council. Yeah. Just as when we took in a large number of people, that was because city council would not take the time to interview people for the commission. And it got to the point we really needed more people. So I do hold city council a little accountable for what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I didn't, you weren't disrespecting me, because I'm sure that I got my message. The intent of my message was not that.
Yeah. Thanks, Anne. I agree with you too, though, about how many people are on our commission. It is a lot. So sorry.
Whenever you're ready for another.
Yeah, I see. So I see Robert has his hand up, and Sue, you physically have your hand up, and I don't know which one went up first, but Sue, you can go.
Sue's went up first, so she can go ahead.
Robert went up first, I think.
Well, I will give authority to where the vice chair is. So
Aren't you cute? Okay, thank you, Robert. I as the other person who's been on here from its inception, besides Anne, I do have a certain amount of institutional history going for me here. I've got a couple of comments. One on what we've done. We've made changes internally to how we structure ourselves. I think we made a big mistake by not keeping specific ad hoc committees that dealt with certain aspects of our job and went to a committee of the whole. And that has bogged everything down as far as I can see from the time we did that. We had a group working, and this was back when we were much smaller. We had a group working on race. We had a group working on LGBTQ issues. We had a group working on disability. We had within ourselves, we set ourselves up for people who were interested in specific areas to work on specific areas. And so when we internally decided not to go that route, I think we made a big mistake in how we do our work. Other thing is, I totally agree with Anne on why we ended up with so many people, because council dropped the ball. But I do think, and I remember discussion of this, that if we increase the membership, we should in fact look for people with subject matter expertise. We talked about that. Wouldn't it be good to have somebody who's really into housing on this commission, who's really into education, who's really into health, whatever. And we didn't get a chance to do that because council never asked us about that, which they could have, or they could have at least interviewed people. Not that I think all of you people who came on all at once are not great people. I do think you've all brought very interesting things to the commission, but we could have done this if we had tried harder, I think. Or it actually, I'm laying it back on council. They could have done that sort of thing. They could have said themselves, you know what, we think maybe the Human Rights Commission would be better served if they had, you know, somebody whose major interest is housing, whose major interest is employment, whatever. I don't think we need to reduce the membership back to 7 or 9. And I'm totally with Ann on the first in, first out, if you don't mind me saying that, because I'd be one of the first in, first outs. And I have apparently one more year to go. But I think we can function. We don't have to have as many as we had. At one point, we had 18 people. We're not down. We're below that now. There are people who are dropping off for their own reasons, and it's not necessary to bring us back up to 18. But what did I look at tonight? We're 10 or 11 here, and a couple of people aren't, like Catherine isn't here. It seems like we've been functioning fairly well with 12. And so I'm totally disagree with bringing it down to 7 to 9. And I hope maybe I've given you a little more background on what we have in fact done. And we made a big mistake by eliminating those subcommittees that dealt with specific issues. And that's all I need to say right now. Robert.
Thank you, Sue. Go ahead, Robert.
Similar. I don't think we need to reduce the size or have a first in, first out policy. I do think perhaps maybe instead of requiring, we prioritize commissioners who have subject matter expertise in those listed, and also prioritize at least 2 commissioners from that. I think requiring is going to make that hard because we can only accept people who apply, and we took everyone, and by grace we have some people who are skilled in education, and we've got some people who are skilled in law, and some people who are skilled in employment, and we may or may not be represented by some Charlottesville land Twitter people, but I don't know if that counts as direct matter of housing experience. But we do have some experience by virtue of it being so big. If we were smaller, it would either not happen if that was required or not. So, but I'm fine with if we wanted to adopt something that's like we prioritize those things. That sounds very practical. But if we both reduce and then require, that's gonna be a hard board to make.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rob. Are there any other comments or responses to what has just been shared? Hey, Jeanette, you go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I really appreciate this document and the letter and the very clear vision for the office and for the new director. There are a few items on here that I think are very much in line with our initial discussion. Number one. Number two, I'm really interested in the idea of the study piece and hearing more about what people think the types of studies that we can invest in to get a clear idea of the types of expertise, and if that would be one used with a consultant or a firm, or if it would be kind of like a home, like an in-house data analysis piece. Number three as well, I definitely think 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all, or 6, 7, and 8 are all very similar to what we've been talking about, with the exception of the nuance of being reporting under the city attorney's office. That's not something we discussed before, and I'm also very interested in that idea. So overall, I think there's a lot of strong suggestions here. I have the specific questions around the type of research that people would be interested in seeing, and the type of skill set. And then to discuss a little bit more about the pros and cons for being under the city attorney's office and why that wasn't the case in the first place.
Thanks, Jeanette. Could you repeat your last, I'm sorry, I was,
That's okay.
your last comment really quickly
So,
about the question?
Yeah, point number 6 said that the Office of Human Rights should be moved to the city attorney's office. Or maybe it was 6. One of the points, I think that was one of the recommendations, right?
6.
So I'd like to hear more about that and why initially that was not the case.
That's a great question. Does anybody, Sue and Ann, I'm looking at you guys for that. Or Todd.
I would say that we always had the liaison from the city attorney's office. And when we first got started, Allison, I forgot what Allison's last name is right now, she would be at most of our meetings. And then, so we have that connection with them, but I'm guessing they're thinking that we should move our office within the city attorney's area. I don't know. But with a lot of things that are going on, people need privacy if they're going to come and discuss issues that they're having with others when it comes to some of our protected classes. So maybe it's best that we are separate, because then they can feel that they can come in and their identity will be respected, and they don't have to worry about other people overhearing what they have to say.
And I don't think it was ever intended that we be quite as legalistic that we're part of the city attorney's office.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of other commissions that most commissions, if they're set up by an ordinance, they tend to report to city council. If I'm wrong, somebody may correct me there. So since it came out of city council, a recommendation to city council to set up this entity, it seems that that's why it was set up to be under city council and the city manager's office. And that frankly worked very well for the first whatever years. It feels like I've been on this for 100 years, but I know it's not that long. But so it strikes me that it's not necessary to move it to the city attorney's office. I don't see any advantage to moving it to the city attorney's office. If we want to get redress for things, we're going to go straight to the rules that govern all the discriminations that go through a human rights thing. And I don't think the city attorney's office is going to do anything more than what city council will do in maybe making new rules, ordinances, whatever. Anyway, I don't see that that's at all a necessary change.
All right. So I had Andy and then Olivia after.
So I think I generally agree with most of what's in the letter. I think in terms of who the Office of Human Rights Director reports to is sort of the issue. It's not where physically the office is, it's about that we want to have somebody who's reporting to the attorney, not the city manager, because the point of the OHR is sort of oversight and to be supervised by the city manager when you're trying to provide oversight. I think there's a conflict, and so it's trying to remove that conflict there. So I do feel that having the director report to the attorney is part of making them a little more independent from the city goings on.
Okay.
I think I don't have an opinion that much one way or another about the membership, but I think having a stronger focus on the enforcement and sort of being a more effective Office of Human Rights, I think having the agreements, investigative agreements are an important component of making the office a more, active, not just the sort of receiving, complaints and reports and having to pass them on to be able to have a little more teeth. And there's one other thing. Yeah, and having a focused report, I think that's also a good thing, because it does seem like that was something that was originally intended with the Human Rights Commission. So those were my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. Jeanette, you did have in the chat box, I think that was a great suggestion around going through the points, the recommendations one by one. It does feel like people have been giving really great feedback though. Olivia, you had your hand up next.
I was just going to say that whoever it's under, I think that one of the fundamental issues with the OHR and the HRC is a lack of resource support and just support in general toward that office. I miss Charlene dearly and she cannot be replaced. But part of the reason why she cannot be replaced is because she was doing far too many jobs for one human being. One thing that I've been advocating for a lot with City Council is the approval of another position, because Todd and Charlene couldn't do it all on their own, and now there's a lot of I don't see how any one human being is going to fulfill the position of Charlene's absence, and I think that's kind of silly. So whatever office it is under, whatever would actually give it the support it needs is what I'm looking for. I mean, when you see Charlene go out into public, she had like a 12-year-old computer that took 10 minutes to boot up, and then like another 10 minutes. It's just, there are a lot of clear indications of a lack of support structurally to an OHR, and whoever it's under, I would like to see a commitment to that sort of support.
All right. Thank you everyone for your feedback. I don't know how folks feel. Jeanette had put in the chat box if we wanted to just quickly go through each recommendation as a group right now, or move it to an ad hoc committee to go through it. I personally don't know if an ad hoc committee would be the best for. I would like to go through them now, is basically what I'm saying. But if we do feel like we need an ad hoc committee, is okay. Can I just like get nods or something?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just gonna read them off. This is also for the public who may not be following or have access to the letter right now. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but starting off with, we ask council to now remedy this problem in the current budget cycle by making the following policy changes. One, hiring a manager of the OHR/director of the Human Rights Commission who has legal and civil rights credentials and significant experience with human rights compliance. How are folks feeling on that point?
Chantel,
yeah,
I would certainly disagree with the issue of who has legal and civil rights credentials, because the first director had those credentials and it was challenging, and it was very challenging for us at the very beginning, and we lost a lot of dedicated people that way. I think that the HR person should have knowledge of and contact with persons who have that kind of legal and civil rights credentials, even though that person, when I think of Charlene, she had all that, and it will be hard to replace her. And I think that she had demonstrated that we do have that, significant experience with human rights compliance. So I think as we look for a new director, we look for someone who's, I think their major focus should be on human rights issues, and having references and things that show where they have had significant working with human rights issues. And I think where the other one, everything else may fall in place.
Okay.
But I don't think as that we necessarily need an attorney or anything like that.
Right. I'm gonna keep us rolling if people don't have anything else to say around that. So Olivia, you have your hand up.
I just like, I understand that Charlene was wildly capable in many, many facets, but I think that if we wanted to see somebody else take that position and see fundamental changes to the HRC, that having somebody leading that office who does have that sort of compliance expertise, that sort of legal expertise, allows us to have legitimate teeth in the things that we're trying to have teeth in. None of us should be required to have all of that sort of experience. I think that the person who is our staff contact with the city government should have a large knowledge of that and have worked in some sort of compliance or legal field. I think that's as really important as what we're trying to do is work within a governmental structure, and a person who has authority in a governmental structure, somebody with that sort of legal understanding and knowledge and experience.
Okay, thank you. And then Catherine Lawn has her hand up. And then Sue.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that we need someone with legal. It does not say a lawyer per se, but we do need somebody with legal and compliance expertise who can really fight these battles with the appropriate knowledge and skills.
And thank you, Catherine. If we keep it quick like that, I love it. That's great. So we can get through these. Sue, do you want to, or is this an old hand?
No, this is a new hand.
Okay.
And I'll lower it now. Yeah, we are talking about this, and we haven't talked about what we came up with our job description. It strikes me that, you know, we can't say, yes, we agree with this statement without also looking at the job description that we worked on last week and see how it fits in to what we've decided. And we moved the discussion. We're discussing the Heineke letters before we discuss the review draft documents detailing qualities and recommendations for new OHR manager, HRC director. We didn't even talk about that yet. And so I would have to have them together to say whether this is exactly what we need to say in ours, if we haven't already said it. Okay. We haven't looked at that yet.
All right, thank you, Sue. I will say that not all of these recommendations are referring to the director, but that was the first one. And if folks can multitask with their feedback, that's great. I understand that's really hard to do. So just really quickly, I know that folks are saying that they had prior experience, I guess, with a past person that was hired that had legal experience that perhaps was not a good fit. And then we're also sharing our love for Charlene, which is great. I just want to make the comment that no one person should be the model for everything. There are great lawyers out there that are great human beings. I mean, we have Catherine Spear on the Human Rights Commission, who's amazing. Likewise, there could be people out there that maybe don't have a legal background, but maybe have some qualities of Charlene that we see on paper at least, and could not be a good fit. So I think maybe if we can just, I understand that it's a human nature to like make comments based on who we know and who we've seen in life about what would be a good quality fit for a position, but I don't necessarily see that serving us too well if we keep going back on the couple folks that we know as the standard. So I just want to say that, and I'm going to keep moving us on to the second one, which is a little bit related. But essentially it's focused on the study. So revising the position description to include the skills necessary to direct, supervise, and manage a mandated HRC task of conducting one major study of systemic discrimination per year and producing substantive policy recommendations to council. I think a lot of people said that this was a good idea, but if folks want to chime in and say anything else about that, Catherine, I saw your hand first, and then Jeanette, I saw yours.
Yeah, so I actually love this idea. I think it's a brilliant idea. I don't think that we could even consider doing it without resources.
Yeah.
I don't think we have we may have the knowledge, but we don't have the time as commissioners to carry this out ourselves. And without a more robustly staffed office, that certainly can't happen there. So that would really require funding to get those kinds of studies carried out.
Cool. Thank you. And Jeanette, you had your hand raised. I don't know.
My comments were very similar, that I think it's a great idea. I think I don't understand why the Human Rights Commission would implement the study, but that if the office would do it with some resources to bring in a consultant or a research firm. And then I also think that we are making choices. If we move towards this type of human rights director, there might not be as much time for the community outreach piece. And so being conscious of how we might fill that role in other ways.
All right, I'm gonna keep us moving to the third one around changing the ordinance to direct a new director of the OHR to work with the HRC to establish agreements with the EEOC and HUD for work share agreements in order for the HRC and OHR to expand complaint investigations in housing and employment. Any comments there? I think that's great. No, I'm gonna take no news as good news, and that sounds like a great thing. Probably limited by budget and all the things that we discussed before. So great, we're gonna keep it moving. Number 4 is reduce the HRC membership back to 7 or 9 by using a first in, first out format or reducing the size for effective deliberation and action. Folks have shared comments on this already. Are there any more comments that folks want to share on this? It's okay if we don't have any. Great. Just to sum up past comments, we were a little bit like it's okay to have a bigger number. There are folks that were saying it would be helpful if City Council did do interviews and were mindful of the selections. 5 is requiring that 4 human rights commissioners have subject matter expertise in housing, health, employment, education, and that at least 2 commissioners be from organizations representing citizens from historically marginalized communities affected by housing and employment discrimination. Are there any more comments around here? Sue, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, in previous discussions of this, we never got to the at least 2 commissioners be from organization, a mandate on this. And I don't know that we're ready for mandates, but if we can express to council that we are interested in people with subject matter expertise and, beat the bushes to get those people to apply. But I am not happy with a mandated representation. I'm just simply not. Nobody else seems to do that. I mean, there may be a couple of commissions that got a specific thing, but they're more technical. And I'm just not happy with a mandate of at least 2 commissioners.
Olivia, I see your hand is up.
I am in support of the mandate. I don't think it's practical or reasonable to think that that's going to happen overnight. I think that that is, as the composition of the commission changes over the years and as we gain more people, I think that we should take note of what kind of expertise we have and have that on paper and make it official, because there is many of that expertise, many of the requested expertise that on the commission already. But I think that the mandate is important for the solid functioning of this commission. I think that those people with expertise, whenever those conversations come up, are integral to the conversation and enlightening us on certain problems, issues, and things that we need to look out for. So I would be in favor of a mandate under the understanding that it wouldn't happen immediately.
Yeah. Lindell, sorry, it was taking me a while to see your name.
It's okay. So I agree with Olivia. I think that a mandate is acceptable. I think that's fine. Recognizing that it's all part of a balanced approach to councils looking at applications and trying to build a commission that makes sense. And I did note, though, that this said that the commissioners be from organizations representing citizens. I don't know that it needs to be people from organizations or people who have personal experience. I think either one is fine.
Thank you, Lindell. I'm going to keep us moving just for the sake of time. We are recording this and writing things down. I think this is definitely should be on the agenda for the joint work session. So thank you so much for giving your feedback and bearing with us. The next recommendation is moving the Office of Human Rights Director and the Human Rights Commission functions related to discrimination, complaint compliance, and major systemic studies of discrimination into the city's attorney's office with direct oversight by council. We have talked about this already before. Folks shared their sentiments that maybe we don't really want it in the attorney's office, and that it being separate is actually good just for the providing oversight. Are there any other comments that folks want to share that maybe I missed something? Sue, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, my question is the last thing with direct oversight by council. Does council directly oversee, I mean, do they get into what goes on in the city attorney's office as much as this kind of tells me they want to? Direct oversight by council, what does that mean compared to being part of the city attorney's office? I'm not sure.
Andy, did you want to respond?
Sure. I think it's about who the office director reports to, and so I think I'm in favor of the director reporting to the city attorney rather than the city manager.
Sue, did you mean to re-raise your hand?
No, I'm sorry. Lower.
All right. Thank you for that feedback. The seventh one is designating a council liaison to the HRC. We all agree on that. That would be really effective in us getting all our knowledge shared with city council. So I'm just going to keep moving on unless people have burning requests around that one. 8 is modifying the ordinance to mandate the chair of the Human Rights Commission report directly to council every quarter on progress related to systemic studies of discrimination. Again, I think that's really related to the 7th one, and it makes sense to have a report if there was a liaison that was there. Do people want to add any more comments? All right, and then the 9th one is modifying the current ordinance and bylaws of the OHR HRC to reflect the changes specified above.
Sorry, Chantal, I just wanted to comment on the one above.
Yes.
I think quarterly might be like maybe twice a year, just because research studies often 3 months isn't a big amount of time to have big updates. If there is an active liaison coming to the meetings, then I think that's a lot of work for the chair to do. So
yeah, thank you, Jeanette.
Mhm.
I agree. That is a lot of meetings. So, and then the ninth one, of course, is modifying the current ordinance. So I'm gonna, if people are okay, I'm gonna move. Sue, I see your hand is up.
Well, yeah, I don't know what that means. If we don't agree with certain parts of this, statement 9 is ridiculous. I mean, if we don't agree with some of these things, then we can't modify the ordinance and bylaws to reflect the changes. I mean, that may be a request of these people, but I don't see how that happens.
Yeah, so how I am understanding this whole process, these are recommendations and we're going through it and we can change things. Some things may require our ordinance to be changed because of it, to reflect it, and some things may not require an ordinance change, is how I'm at least thinking about it. Hiring a manager doesn't require the ordinance to be changed, for example. So Sue, is that answering your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I am so happy we're able to discuss this. I think this is a really great conversation. If there aren't any more comments, I think what we should do, there's not a lot of time before our next meeting with City Council. Some of these recommendations feel like we should continue to look at them and revise them. I would prefer if we put it on a Google Doc and work together on it. And Jeanette, perhaps it's a part of, if we have one more ad hoc session on the agenda setting, that this can be a part of that as well, instead of creating a separately different ad hoc committee to just go over these recommendations. Does that sound okay with you, Jeanette?
Part of the ad hoc was not just to come up with the agenda, but to also revise the job description. So yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So we'll add this to a Google document and we'll continue to give feedback on it. And it will be added to the docket for the ad hoc committee that's meeting, that Jeanette is chairing on the joint work session with City Council. Does that sound okay? Olivia, you have your hand.
I just want to know if it's something that we're working on. Would we send it to council beforehand, what our revisions are? Okay. So I would like to send them in an official capacity with our support and the minor revisions that it seems like the HRC is looking for.
Absolutely. All right. If there aren't any more, I'm sorry, Linda, I know you've been monitoring the chat and I didn't, because I was facilitating the discussion, I was not looking at the chat box if you put more things in there or if attendees have raised their hand. So.
No, I think there was one thing that I put in there, but I don't think that the comments were actually directed to us. Okay. But I put them in there for the sake of transparency.
Nice.
Until there are no raised hands by attendees currently.
Great. So if there are no more comments on the section A of our work session, I'm going to move on to the ad hoc committee updates. All right. So the ad hoc committee updates, the first one, which I am on the dock for, updating the rules and procedures, including Martha's rules. That ad hoc committee, which I was kind of overseeing, did not meet during the COVID stuff, and I did not reschedule us for that meeting. So I apologize for falling behind on that due to COVID. So that's pretty much the only update. Basically, that ad hoc committee was looking at the Martha rules, which we passed to be incorporated for how we handle motions. And I do think that we should, if we can, actually schedule a meeting right now, live time. If it's too much for folks, we can have Todd send out a doodle poll, which I'm completely okay with. It may be better if we do that instead. Todd, is it okay if you send out a doodle poll for that ad hoc committee to meet?
Happy to do that. You can just send me sort of a group of dates and times that work for you, and I'll send out a poll from there.
Okay, thank you. Section number 2 is the ad hoc committee that Jeanette, you are chairing.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep having to put my video off. My computer keeps freezing. So I will share in the chat, and Todd had shared through our group the links to the Google Doc for the agenda and for the draft job description. And I think it would be wise to schedule another meeting so that we can review these comments from today's meeting and integrate them in as much as possible. So I will send out a doodle like we did last time. Is that how I should do it, Todd?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you, people do it different ways. If folks are still having trouble receiving emails from individual commissioners that send to the group email, you can send me the dates, and then I'll create the poll and send it out so that all the responses come back to me, and then I'll pass you the end result when you tell me you want to.
I will do that.
Cut it off the poll.
Did anyone access the document yet? Not yet. Okay. I didn't think so. I didn't see any changes to it.
I did have one question, not about the work description, but just about the agenda that we had gone through for the joint work session, Jeanette.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Todd and I had a really brief meeting, and I was wondering if to that joint work session we could also add like introductions and doing the report. There's a report out for City Council that we were unable to get done before Charlene had left. And so we wanted to take some time to open up the joint session with that report. I was like, oh my God, I was so excited. I cried a little bit. What just happened? I don't know who that was. But does that sound okay?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we briefly spoke about was and I reached out to Charlene about coming back potentially to do like a short segment or introduction for new commissioners on just like the history of the Human Rights Commission and the dialogue on race and all that stuff for, you know, context setting and just to reflect on everything that's been built already. So I'm wondering how people feel about that being added to the agenda for the joint work session for the introductions and the context setting as well.
I think that's great, mostly because I don't think we've had a single city councilor attend a meeting in 18 months, if not probably longer.
Do other folks have any suggestions for the agenda? We have one more general body meeting before the joint work session, but I think ideally all of this stuff should be sent to City Council at least 2 weeks in advance. So Jeanette, I don't know. I guess that gives you somewhat of a timeline on when the ad hoc committee meeting should happen.
Okay, so if we're meeting with them on the 28th, we want to have the materials to them by the 13th around?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then, and our next meeting is the 16th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll put stuff out for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, so that gives us 2 weeks to Okay. Awesome. Are there any more comments for commissioners that folks want to? Well, I'm just going to tell Jeanette, thank you for getting us organized and starting, chairing that committee. It's a lot of moving pieces. So we definitely appreciate you, Jeanette, for taking the lead on that. Next up is the policy review. And I don't think Catherine Spear is here. So we may have to, I'm happy to give updates on.
Wasn't it both you and I were on, wasn't that the police policy review? Or is that, yeah. I mean, my knowledge, we didn't meet. So I think that's about it, unless Catherine wants to chime in. Catherine Lawn wants to chime in.
Yeah, no, we have not met since the last report was made in a meeting.
Okay.
In a larger meeting.
There was.
Oh. Sorry.
This is Jeanette. There was the suggestion that we add to the joint session with City Council a review of the recommendations around that ad hoc committee. Should I keep that on there?
Sorry, what did you say, Jeanette? I'm sorry.
During the ad hoc meeting that we had to look at the agenda, there was the suggestion that we keep on there sharing the documents from the police review and other documents that have been presented to council.
Yes.
Does that committee feel like it'll be ready?
And people can refresh my memory, but I was also on the police ad hoc committee. And I remember there were two things that specifically held us up. The first was that we were requesting meetings with Chief Brackney or someone from her department, and that was unable to meet. There's this whole framework that we had set up on how we would review policy. And so the first ones was just us reviewing the policy, creating the recommendations, and then going and meet with a stakeholder group and having just a dialogue about it before there was, kind of an official recommendation set that was sent out. We were not able to get a meeting with the police department to go over the draft recommendations that we had. And because of that, as well as the CRB conversations, which we really want to respect that board coming to fruition, we put things on hold. So I do know that the police policies recommendations are still in draft mode. It's robust, but it's still in draft mode in the sense that we really did want someone to review it first. We're really trying to create like a dialogue instead of just saying like, this is what you're doing wrong. So I don't know, I could check, I'm happy to check back in, or maybe Catherine Lawn or Robert would like to check back in with Catherine Spear, but I'm happy to do it and see where she feels like the state of those documents are to be shared. But I think they look pretty good, but I'm also not a lawyer, so she may
When does she officially leave for California?
Todd,
sometime in July, right?
July 20th, I believe.
Okay.
Okay.
I personally think without meeting with anyone, those documents are good to go. And I mean, I haven't looked at them in months. I don't know about Catherine or Chantel, but there wasn't much more we could do with them without input from an external body.
Yeah. I mean, they looked really good. It would be nice to meet with people, but that didn't happen. So maybe we just include them. All right. Is Phoebe on the line or anybody from the Disability Awareness PSA group that would like to give an update?
Phoebe's not here.
Yeah. She didn't send any updates. Usually she's pretty good about that. So I didn't get anything from her. All right. Well, if there are no updates on that, I'm sure that the last thing I remember from them is everything was going really well, and then it was COVID. So we'll see where they're at with the video on disability awareness, and you can check back in with them a little bit later. If there are no more comments for our work session, I'm gonna go ahead and close it out. Todd, and this is just because it's on the agenda written this way about the public comment and stuff. Is this like a moment that we can pause and ask if folks have from public have anything that they want to say for the discussion, or?
Sure. You've got currently 3 participants still in the attendees from the public. And so if anyone would like to make a comment, they can raise their hand. There's no hands raised currently.
Okay. Lindell, there's nothing going on Facebook?
No, nothing.
Okay. So it doesn't look like anyone's raised their hands to respond to our work session agenda items after discussion. So I'm gonna go ahead and close out our work session and move on to our individual commissioner updates and announcements. If there anything that people would like to share from events they've attended in the past couple weeks or events that are coming up, here's a great time to do it. I know there's a lot that's been going on in our world, so please do share. Really, no events? Gee, man, you guys aren't doing anything.
I have been attending the protests with masks and gloves, and I think that policy is changing nationally because people are in the streets. I think council right now is clogged up with a lot of other things, but from my understanding, they're seeing thousands of emails a day with specific policy requests, and that's been both really sad and encouraging to be a part of. So I don't know of any protests currently planned, but tomorrow is Juneteenth, and there's a national day of organizing for Juneteenth. Also, there are a couple of events going on around town, but the one I know specifically about is that the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center is hosting a Juneteenth celebration tomorrow at 6 virtually for people to attend. It'll be the 20th Juneteenth there, so that would be a cool thing for people to attend, and it's on Facebook and YouTube Live.
Thanks, Liv. Thanks, Olivia. Sorry. Lindell?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I have been to a couple of protests as well, and had a conversation with an email exchange with Lloyd Snook, and I'm not sure how much I want to talk about it, in this virtual here, but I think there are a lot of conversations that are happening on Facebook and other places that you know what? I think I'm just going to retract this. Sorry. I don't want to go there because I think it's really complicated, and I'm sorry that I brought it up, and we'll back up.
I respect you, Lindell. I also, part of me is just like wants to know what you're talking about now. There's no way you can figure out how to share.
I know. I'm sorry. There's nothing like really big secret. I think everybody has been involved and everybody has seen all the many conversations that have gone around. I'm specifically talking around police presence and the policing issues. And I don't know that that's in our bailiwick, so I'm kind of not, I'm retracting my bringing it up because I don't think it's in our realm of work.
I just wanted to bring up another thing that I'd spoken to many of you all about in the beginning of, or I guess mid-March. A lot of community organizers from many of the organizations on that list that Walt had and the other organizations got together to create a mutual aid network while the federal government was trying to figure out how it was going to support people in this time. And from that work, we were able to scale up and partner with the city and CACF, and we were able to disperse more than $2 million of aid to the general Thomas Jefferson Health District area. And I think that there are a lot of those sort of things that are going to happen soon. I think as the governor has banned evictions currently, but I don't know if that's going to last forever. And as people lose aid in July, I think that there's going to be a new need, and keeping our eyes open as a commission be really important, because I'm really worried for a mass amount of people to lose their, I mean, it's some 25% of the population, most of their current income.
Thanks, Olivia, for sharing that. The Public Housing Association of Residents, Brandon Collins did share the same sentiments and a call. I'm just going to open the email for folks to email City Council. And I do think that's something that we should get behind and support. It is talking about evictions and housing. And perhaps maybe that's what Brandon had joined the call for originally and just didn't have time. But I'm happy to forward this on. He sent it a day ago, and it's really just requesting that we make urgent action. So it says, "Hi, friends and freedom fighters, help Seville do better to avoid an eviction and homelessness crisis. Urgent action is needed today. Please email City Council before noon tomorrow and let them know that you want at least $1 million of Critical Cares Act funding to go towards rent relief and helping the homeless." Long story short, council got $4.1 million in coronavirus relief funds, but only putting $654K into human needs, of which a portion will assist maybe with housing, kinda. So tell council about the relief. So I think we have until tomorrow noon, if I'm understanding his email at Friday at noon.
It was actually today.
Oh my gosh. Yep. I literally just opened this email today.
Yeah. The meeting already happened. The vote has taken place.
And what was the verdict on the vote?
Don't quote me exactly, but I believe no money was really reallocated, but there was a commitment that any monies not used as intended would go toward community support specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, the allocations didn't really change.
So thank you for that. I wish that I had seen that sooner than before today, or so what do we do? I think is a big question. If we do see that things are happening and that housing is going to be an issue, council didn't vote a certain way as of yesterday. I do still think there's always work to be done and things that still can be said. So if folks still feel as though it's worth it to reach out to City Council, I'm happy to reach back out to Brandon. I don't think he's on the call anymore, to see if he had anything he wanted to share about the eviction and homelessness protections and where the CARES Act funding is going to go. I'm happy to help with that. also just want to hear what folks think should be our next move, or is this just people want to not do anything? I'm sorry I said that in a very sassy way. I'm just a little tired.
Chantel.
I'm sorry. Okay, so Sue had her hand raised, I think, and y'all did at the same time.
I will let Sue go first.
Oh, you go.
Well, I think that this is very important, but I feel sort of out of the loop because commissioners seem to be involved with more emailing and various things that are going on in the community that I don't seem to be a part of. And I think that's something that if something comes across your plate, then you should share it with us by forwarding to us, so we'll be on one page.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as this issue with the homelessness and the evictions, Chantel, at least we might want to do a resolution or somewhere supporting them and being available to them.
Okay. I will be better at to be a little bit fair to me. He did send this out around 4 p.m. yesterday, and I just did not check the depths of my personal email.
Well, you know what? And I can understand, because when somebody sends something last minute, a lot of times you don't check your emails every day, every minute. So I understand completely.
Well, and also to be fair, Anne, a lot of us get a lot of information in a steady stream from multiple platforms. And if I forwarded every piece of information about everything going on in the community that I get information on, you would quickly not be happy with the volume of information. So
yeah, I'd like to clarify that too, if I could. I'm sorry, I just jumped in.
Yeah. So Sue, did you want to go?
Well, I was going to say, I like Anne's idea of a resolution in support of supporting people who are being subjected to discrimination in this area. I keep going back to what we are involved with is looking at discrimination. But I do think that sending something out to every member of the commission indicating there's a need for input to council or to whatever on a specific issue and asking people to sign it. I spend way too much time reading emails, way too much time. I think my legs are going to stop working eventually because I'm sitting all the time. But I think, a short resolution, coming up with a resolution on behalf of the commission is a tedious, time-consuming thing. It has to be short and sweet, that everybody can agree with without wordsmithing, without, going back and forth. Did we really mean this? Did we really mean that? But I don't have a problem with, I think it's a very serious issue, and there are other entities paying a great deal of attention to the eviction issues. So anyway, that's just my remark, and I will mute my.
There was someone else that was, I lost track. Was it Rob? Was it you that had your hand up, or? Okay.
Lindell had asked to speak.
Oh, Lindell.
Sorry. Yeah, maybe I just lost track of the conversation somewhere, but I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. So this request to send information around to all the commissioners is really about conversations that have taken place within the context of someone bringing an issue before a commissioner on the Human Rights Commission. Is that correct? Not on any work in the community that might be related to Human Rights Commission kind of work.
May I interject? I think, Lindell, that it might be good if it's something that if a person brought it to us, that we could address as a body.
Okay.
Not everything, because emails get, it gets filled up as quick as it can, and I get tired of delete. But if there's serious things going on that we need, that you perceive, and I mean you as commissioners perceive that we should discuss, I would leave it to your judgment in whether or not this is something we should look at.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, the thing that that little CARES Act budget thing was just released, like, was it Thursday or Friday? There was very little turnaround. So I think that with these things sort of happening so quickly, it really, it's easy to miss these things. And I think not having that time is just the nature of what we have going on.
Yeah. Olivia?
And I just wanted to say, in response to Sue's concern about the letter or the resolution being strictly dealing with discrimination, I hear that, but our mission that we read before every meeting is to act as strong advocate for justice and equal opportunity by providing citywide leadership and guidance in the area of civil rights. And I really think that housing is a right in the middle of a national recession or international recession and pandemic, that the idea of people being houseless is really horrifying to me, and it's a thing that we can avoid as a community. And it's not just subject to discrimination, it's subject to classism, and all kinds of other things are thrown in there. And I think that we as a community need to kind of reset the way we think about things in this time, and hopefully going forward. And that goes beyond the kind of black and white discrimination and more into more complicated, nuanced areas. And I think that just supporting people who are being evicted in this time in whatever creative ways we can is really essential to the Human Rights Commission right now. I know that Todd gets phone call after phone call, people trying to find housing every month. It's what a lot of his work is. And the idea of people trying to find housing while also having no income because our economy is crashing is really horrifying. And I would like to speak to that as a commission in a creative and important way.
Yeah.
Chantel, may just make a thought, just offer a thought. When, with regard to housing, previously the commission did pass a resolution in support of the Charlottesville Supplemental Rental Assistance Program, or CSRAP. So there's sort of a model for that, and that obviously wasn't a discrimination issue. It was advocacy for a program that supported the well-being of people and access to housing. So if something like that were of interest, I'm happy to support, with, any way you want to write that. And I can say, spend a good part of March and April and actually continue to this day responding, being somebody on the front lines of responding to people calling in for assistance with rent, assisted with the Pathways program, both in Charlottesville and Albemarle, and then the general COVID relief fund. So there's consistent demand. People who got that assistance approved in May are still waiting for it. And now they have June to pay, and they are worried about how they're going to pay June while they're still waiting for that assistance check for May. So I can say that it's palpable.
Yeah.
So just to offer a frontline view.
Thank you, Todd. I really appreciate that. And Sue, and I do think we should write a resolution. Jeanette, I see your hand. I just want to make one other comment. Piggybacking off Todd and just the emails that I got today, actually, that we forwarded on to Emily from the Legal Aid Justice Center. But I'm randomly getting emails from colleagues that are working at UVA now. They just know that I do things and just are sending me emails because they don't know what to do about it was 3 or 4 folks that were having some trouble with rent. and getting assistance. So just to echo, Todd, what you've said, and that folks are struggling and are out there. And so I would love your help with the resolution if you have time. That maybe we're crafting it off of the supplemental ritual assistance one. I'm not sure. We haven't written a resolution this year yet. Or since I've been chair, I think there's one resolution we passed actually, but that was really straightforward. This feels a little bit different. So Jeanette, do you want to go? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was just to be in the queue, not to stop what you were sharing. I had a question about what Olivia shared about our mission to act as strong advocates to justice and equal opportunity by providing citywide leadership and guidance in the area of civil rights. And right now I'm wondering like how vocal we want to be. There's been a few wins through the Supreme Court with the 2 cases on DACA and the LGBTQ being defined. Do we want to put out any statements around those? And then also on this side, in terms of advocating for continued pause at evictions. And I know we don't have like a media realm or anyone to provide support in that way, but I wonder if there is a way that, separate from a formal resolution, we could promote some of these issues that are happening and to be an active voice.
Yeah, I agree. Brian Miller is, I guess, still kind of owned, but not really, because he shouldn't be working right now. But we do have the statement that Catherine Spear put together for Black Lives Matter, and I am reading over it right now. So far, we would be the only commission that this, after Nakaya and City Council's statement, which was great. It was beautiful. No other commission has actually submitted any type of statement. So I am happy that we have that in the K, and we did speak with Brian Miller earlier before our meeting started about how that would, how best to get that out. So that should be pretty straightforward. And Todd, once we officially okay it, Todd will be the one that sends it off to comms. And then I'm assuming that that's the process for any statement that we want to put out. Maybe we should have some type of a schedule for it, because there's so many things that are going on, and we definitely probably should prioritize the statements that are the most important to make. But I definitely hear you there. I think if that's the only thing we can do as of right now with our tied hands, is we definitely should be speaking out a lot more and putting out more statements and more press releases so people can see and hear and know that we're here for them. So do folks have any more comments around that? I think we could definitely offline continue to talk on forever about like what should be the first one to go out. Definitely the Black Lives Matter statement, without question, is the first one that's going to go out, needs to go out. And then we can look at the resolution for housing and things that follow after that. I'm happy for us to kick it around in an email conversation rather than try to get something up right now. All right. Are there any more comments that folks want to share about what they've been up to or what is going on? All right. I'm going to go ahead and move us to, if I can get the meeting. I think we're at the final public comment, if I remember the agenda correct. I lost it.
Chantel, I just wanted to let you know you've got 2 members of the public. Neither of them have raised hands. And one other quick thing, just to make sure everybody knows that the General Assembly did pass legislation that added to the Virginia Fair Housing Act, that source of payment discrimination is now protected.
Yep. Thank you, Todd. So if there are no more comments from commissioners and we'll go on to matters by the public, which Todd, you said there are no raised hands there.
No raised hands currently. 2 members are still in attendance.
Anne has said that her computer quit on her and she's trying to rejoin. She may not end up joining in time, but we are closing out. So if there are no public comment, I'm going to go ahead and close that out and open it up for commission response to matters by the public. If there aren't any. So moving on to our next steps, Jeanette is going to send out a doodle poll for the ad hoc committee to re-meet, going over the joint work session with City Council in the next couple weeks. Todd is going to send out a doodle poll for myself I'm going to send him some slots, and then he'll send out a doodle poll to the group on meeting about the Martha rules and our ordinance update, so we can officially accept the Martha rules for managing our motions, which I'm really excited for. And then we're also going to look towards finishing the Black Lives Matter statement and getting it off to Todd so he can officially get it posted through Brian Wheeler at the for communications office. And then we're also going to look at drafting a resolution for housing and to support against eviction. So are there any other things that folks want to add to our next steps? If not, I'm going to go ahead and move us to adjourn. Okay, so we are going to adjourn the meeting. It is 8:03.
Thank you, Chantel.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good to see everyone.
Good job, girl.